the large energy bill, which requires legislative approval for the large energy projects that are affecting our state, from wind to solar to even power consumption of the AI data centers.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Cheri Steinmetz. I'm the chair of the Weston County Republican Party. This is a forum that's seeking grassroots feedback from citizens from your legislators. We're blessed to have 2 legislators who asked for us to set up a forum so that you all had a chance to talk with them, give them your feedback, and then they can use your thoughts when they vote on legislation in the legislative session upcoming. So you are all welcome to pose questions and make your points, but please be respectful of time and of your fellow citizens. Couple of ground rules. First is be respectful. Each person will be allowed 1 minute at the microphone. Please make your point and ask your question succinctly, and if someone else has already made your point, please yield your time and avoid repetition. Wait your turn and do not shout from the floor, and preference will be given to the districts, people from the districts that these legislators represent. So when you come up to the microphone, please let us know who you are and where you live. Not your exact address, just the town is fine. If you're not represented by Chip or Cheri, if you'd please hold your questions to the end, and if there's time, we'll be happy to let y'all have your questions. If you have one-off issues for your legislators, like I'm petitioning the legislator because I don't like the sign on the left side of my property, please discuss that with your legislator one-on-one, and please use this forum for things that affect all of us. So as the chair, I have the right to determine if a topic is a question that is dilatory or not germane to the forum. I will do my very best to give you all the latitude to speak whatever you want to your legislators, but I am going to try and keep us on topic and make sure that we get out before midnight. Chip and Cheri will be up here. They're going to give you comments and explain a few things from the start, and then we'll start with questions and answers from the floor. I'll have a microphone off to one of the side, and if you have a question, just come on over to me at the microphone, and we'll take turns that way. Okay? Thank you very much. Without further ado, Senator Cheri Steinmetz. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, hello everyone, it's good to be with you. Every time I drive up here or drive across our state, I'm just reminded how thankful I am to live here in the land of the free and the wide open spaces, and how grateful I am and how honored I am to serve in the state legislature on your behalf, to see Wyoming continue to be our home and how we like it to be. My grandkids are our 6th generation of family that live where I grew up, and this state means the world to me. So, and all of you who live here and make it so special. So with that, I just was going to go over a few things, and then I'd really like to hear from you, and maybe we could let Chip give opening comments, and then we could both take questions at the same time, because we have knowledge in different subject areas where he is in leadership. He knows a few more things about their management council meetings, things like that. I'm currently serving on the Labor Health Committee and the Corporations Committee, so we deal with all the election bills and corporations. We were up on redistricting here on the subcommittee for redistricting this summer, and then Labor Health is the hospitals and the Department of Health and things like that. Leading off, I'll just let you know the Senate has a limit of 3 bills in the budget session, And so I have 3 bills. One will be a constitutional amendment to have Senate confirmation for Supreme Court justices that will, if it makes it through both houses with 2/3 majority, will go to the vote of the people, if that would be something you would care to entertain. I've got a bill that requires low-income housing developers that are for-profit corporations to pay property taxes, just like all the rest of us do. Just feel that that's their duty. They're using government services in our local communities, and they're a for-profit company, so they should be paying their fair share for those services. And what was my last one? The large energy bill, which requires legislative approval for the large energy projects that are affecting our state, from wind to solar to even power consumption of the AI data centers. That's something we should all be watching very closely. It has the ability to impact our rates all across the state, as well as water possibility being, utilized. Depending on what kind of system they use, they could use a lot of water as well. This aspect only deals with power generation or power consumption. So those are the 3 bills, and then I did have one other in front of Select Water that they decided to take up, and that deals with the destruction of water molecules in order to make hydrogen. Hydrogen can be produced through natural gas or coal as well, and we're such a dry, arid state, and our water is so valuable it's not a part of the water cycle anymore. You break the molecule apart and it doesn't exist any longer. So they can make hydrogen out of something else besides our water. So those are my 3 bills. I've seen a lot of information coming out on recalibration and our budget. I just did want to touch on some of that. As far as K-12 and recalibration, 2 of the measures that I have seen in the legislature since my tenure there have been ideas from Charlie Scott, who is the longest serving 42-year veteran in the Wyoming State Legislature. And he had 2 ideas. One was to silo money to go directly to the classroom for teachers, so that there was a direct funding source. We were making sure it was getting to the educator and the student, rather than going to administration or other ancillary services. The other idea he had was to deal with what we call ghost teachers. And that is when the legislature funds K-12 at a level of 16-to-1, 16 students to 1 teacher. Most classroom sizes are 21-to-1. And so when the state calibrates the funding, they fund at 16-to-1, and they provide benefits and salary for the positions that would be 16-to-1. In effect, that gives us ghost teachers, and those ghost teachers, the funds for them, the people that aren't actually there, can be utilized by the school district in other ways. So what we're trying to do is just get that calibrated correctly, make sure we get the money right to the classroom where it belongs, and make sure students and teachers are funded adequately. So Charlie Scott came up with those 2 components, and he's been talking about them since I came in 2014. So these aren't new ideas, they're something that we've been discussing for a very long time. As far as appropriations, I haven't studied all of the changes that they've made. We won't see all of that until we get into session, the bill's on our desk, and we get explanations of why and what and where and how. I have heard some rumblings about the University of Wyoming. The University of Wyoming is a land-grant institution, which means that it was created in order to provide education, engineering, and agriculture. And it was a liberal education in the fact that it was supposed to be all of the classical components of education. It was not to teach liberalism. It was a liberal education, not liberalism. And so the University of Wyoming through the years has had some mission creep in areas like gender studies and DEI and things like that. And to the point where there are degree programs where no Wyoming kids are even graduating from them, like the Department of Gender Studies. And so out of a $250 million block grant that they get every year, a $20 million decrease is not going to be as significant as it has been made to sound. So those degree programs need to really be looked at and realigned, and I think that that is something that the trustees should be doing and should be considering as we go through the budgeting process. I think all of our agencies need to be transparent with the public and be serving the purpose that they were intended for. And we need to be checking that out every once in a while. It's the power of the purse that the legislature exercises that is one of the most powerful tools we have to affect policy in the state of Wyoming. So with that, I will give the microphone to our good Speaker of the House and let him pick up where I left off.
Thank you, Cheri. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with you tonight. Got a full house. Looks good. Well, I would like to welcome you all here. I appreciate the interest in coming out and having a good discussion tonight. I've had a rather full day, as many of you probably know. I'm sure some of you have some questions that you've been reading coming over the Facebook and internet and stuff like that. So I look forward to a very lively and entertaining evening tonight. I guess what I'm here to do, and it's always an honor to be with Cheri and to be able to come and visit with you folks, and I appreciate your interest in what we're doing. And there are some very big decisions and some very big things that are happening in the state of Wyoming. And I hope that we can have a conversation tonight about all of those things. If we can actually talk about recalibration, we need to talk about the Wyoming Business Council, we need to talk about the University of Wyoming, we need to go into all of these different things. And hopefully I can get some feedback from you, but I also think it's a good idea for you guys to hear where we're at and why the decisions that we're looking at and the recommendations that are being made were made, and under what kind of situations and circumstances we look forward to those things to move forward or not. So I will preface all of what I'm about to tell you folks from the standpoint of everything is fluid. And for those of you in this room that do not realize that we are at the beginning of the process of everything that's going to happen during our budget session, this will be an education for you tonight. Everything that is happening and everything that has been recommended is all going to have to go through the budgetary process in the legislature, and that is a long, arduous task before everything we're talking about tonight. Every committee is going to have an opportunity. The bodies are both going to have opportunities. We're still going to be taking testimony, just like tonight, to come down here and visit with you folks and try to figure out where you guys are at on some of this stuff, and also to be able to have you hear some of the different issues and situations that we've seen and why some of these recommendations. Were made. Just to give you an idea of some of the pieces of legislation, my legislation, quite frankly, has changed pretty dramatically in the past 2.5 weeks. I had 3 bills that I was getting ready to put out. One of them I did number and put out. That bill is a requirement for a referendum if you want to place a recreational tax. For those folks in the state of Wyoming that are on the school boards, for those of you that know of in Cook County, we just have a situation where a school board, which they have the right statutorily to be able to basically vote an additional mill for recreation. And so when those folks were tasked with that or given that opportunity and realizing that was available, they did. But the situation that what I saw and the problem that was relayed to me by my constituents is that they felt like as if that should be the responsibility of the taxpayers that are going to be asked to pay that mill. And they said that they felt it was unfair that they were not going to be given the opportunity to be able to vote on that. And so, to me, that makes sense. And so what I did was I crafted a piece of legislation that will allow school boards to be able to provide the opportunity to place it on a ballot, but ultimately it is the call of the people that are going to be charged that mill, whether or not they want to move forward with it. And then if that bill does pass, that there will be then every 4 years a reevaluation of that mill. And I believe that's very important as well from the standpoint of, is it doing what it was intended to do? Are the dollars getting to where they needed them? Are they being spent wisely? Is there a return on the investment? And I think the folks that are going to be challenged or charged with the responsibility of paying that mill should be able to opine on that. And so that's one piece of legislation that we'll see how and where that goes. I brought that on behalf of my constituents. There are actually only one other county in the state of Wyoming right now that does not have a full mill, recreation mill. And I believe that's Lincoln County. There's 2 other counties that have partial mills. Crook County was one of the last ones besides Lincoln County that had not voted for a mill. And so a lot of folks have come to me after I had started to put that mill together, that piece of legislation together. They said, you know, we've plumb forgotten about that mill. So that got voted on and it was got installed, and they said that nobody's ever gone back to find out whether or not those dollars are really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So they said, I appreciate the opportunity that at least there's going to be on the front burner and people are going to be looking closely at whether or not those dollars are being utilized effectively. And so that's one. The other part of this that I've got, I had 2 other pieces of legislation, one on some First Amendment work. As you all know, there was a young lady down in Matrona County that was wanting to start a Turning Point USA chapter. She got a tremendous amount of pushback from her district, and so she found that she was not able to have the same opportunity in that particular district. So this was some First Amendment opportunity to be able to allow young people in our institutions of higher learning, and our elementaries and grade schools and high schools, to be able to have that latitude and make sure that free speech is protected in our establishments of education. And so I'm thinking I'm going to probably have to push that off onto a couple other people. We're talking about that. We're seeing women's out for sponsorship. I've got quite a few co-sponsors on it. But then the other piece of legislation is for high schools, K through 12. And so we're looking at maybe having to, hopefully I can get another legislator to carry that because of what happened with the Supreme Court decision. As you all well know, the Supreme Court in Wyoming decided on a 4-1 decision to basically, and without any further real discussion, that abortion is health care in Wyoming. And that was found by our court to go against and bring a judgment down based on the Life as a Human Right Act 1992 and also the chemical abortion restrictions that were placed on there by Senator Tim Salazar. I don't agree with that. And I think any baby in the womb would not agree either. And so that is where right now I'm trying to put as much of our focus in as a major move across the state of Wyoming to try to figure out what is the next step. Would it be a constitutional amendment? Because ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if I can really explain it at the level of depth that really I think the implications mean in this particular decision. But that decision was made based on strict scrutiny. And what I have learned that strict scrutiny means activist judges. If you will read our Constitution, Article 1, Section 38, subsection C, it clearly delineates in our Constitution that the legislature reserves the right to restrict any of those rights to health care. The legislature made clear by their representatives and passed into law that we wanted to prevent abortion being identified as a health care. And what happened was, we were going to fight that battle. Our Attorney General fought the battle based on a facial argument. Well, come to find out, the judges decided to change the rules and base it on strict scrutiny. And what that did was that basically created law, created definitions by the judiciary. The judiciary is not supposed to create laws. Legislatures are there to create laws. And so here is the greater implications. For those of you that may not be pro-life, maybe you are pro-choice, maybe you believe that the life of the baby is not actually a human until it leaves the birth canal. And that's basically where we are right now. They do not identify the baby in the womb in any way of gestation as a human being, deserving of rights. The irony in this is that we have state statute that clearly says that if a woman is killed, murdered, or killed in an accident, and she is found to be with child, no matter the determination of the gestational length, that person that caused that crime or killed that woman will be cited with a double homicide in Wyoming state law. To me, that identifies the life of the baby in the womb as an individual deserving of rights and protections. But our Supreme Court said that's not the case. So, why this is a very important thing, and I would really love to hear where you guys are at on this, because there's a lot of states that have tried to pass constitutional amendments that exploded on them. And how pro-life is Wyoming. And I fear codifying abortion as a health care right into our Constitution, thus denying the life of the child. Here's the other implication. By judging based on strict scrutiny, what you have done is you have created a situation where you have to give a compelling argument why we should not allow murder. So, if you can do that, if somebody challenges our Second Amendment rights in the state of Wyoming, can you give a compelling argument why you must be able to own a firearm? Because we have adequate law enforcement, all these different things, you have to give a compelling argument that you need to own a gun. I'll give you another one. As a parent, if your child wants to be transitioned, and that child goes to school or wherever and decides that they want to be transitioned to another sex, which is impossible, but anyway, that's just my opinion. This law and the way this was decided with strict scrutiny can easily disallow a parent's right of action or right of protection. Because you have to give a compelling argument why that child should not be able to do that. The analogy that was given to me by the attorneys is we have to basically, in this form, and what happened in that decision, folks, I'm not kidding you, this is one of the most important, powerful things that has happened in the state of Wyoming by our judiciary, is that we have to make an arguable case why murder is wrong. That's what that decision did. We are still trying to navigate through the long-term implications of what could happen. Anyone can bring a suit right now on any of these things I've just discussed. Do you hold your Second Amendment rights dear to you? You should. Supposedly they were guaranteed in our Constitution. Let me read you something, just for your consideration. These are the things that are going around in my head when we're sitting on the floor trying to figure out how in the world we're going to try to pass laws, and we hand them to a judiciary that says, no, you won't. No, there's not a good argument for this. That baby's not human. It's not deserving of rights until it's viable. Do you know what viability is, as far as they're concerned? Viability is its ability to breathe air. Right now in Wyoming, we have the most liberal, pro-choice law comparable to California and New York. There are no restrictions on abortion in Wyoming. One attorney told me the other day, he said, we can do partial birth abortion in Wyoming and we can consider it health care. I don't know about you, but that bothers me. It bothers me that now we have joined the likes of California and we've joined the likes of New York. Article 1, Section 2 of our very own state constitution says equality of all. In their inherent right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, all members of the human race are equal. The judges looked at that and said, babies are not human unless they are outside of the womb. So, with that little bit of information, and I hope you guys will actively let people know in the state of Wyoming that we've got a major issue with our judiciary. That was a 4-1 decision. I believe Judge Gray got it right. How we pick our judges is something I'm working on. Right now, Wyoming uses the Missouri plan. The Missouri plan is basically what Kansas is trying to get rid of right now. And we're looking at their work right now at their level in the state. There's a 3-judge panel that promotes 3 names to the governor. No, actually, there's 3 from the Bar Association, and then the other panel members are appointed by the governor. They submit 3 names to the bar, to the governor. And the governor chooses from those 3 names, and that's how we put people on the Supreme Court. Now, I don't want to offend any attorneys in here, God forbid. But I think should be a little bit concerned about that system and the fact that the attorneys are choosing who is going to be the Supreme Court, picking the 3 names that they will choose from. And I would dearly love to know what you guys think about Senate confirmation. I would dearly love to know what you guys think about 3-judge panels. If you can look around in Wyoming and find yourself a judge and farm for a judge, all of our life legislation was tied up by Judge Melissa Owens of Teton County. School choice, tied up by the judge, still in courts, waiting to go. We've got 2 other pieces of legislation. One I passed last year in Ram, and another one that was passed by Martha Lawley. Both tied up in court. And here's another thing that's kind of ironic, ladies and gentlemen. That judge was selected by the former Supreme Court Justice Kate Fox and pulled out of retirement to decide that case. He had no concern about being up for retention. She picked the judge. I had 2 different attorneys tell me, well, I knew when I saw that name what was going to happen to that legislation. We got a problem, a major problem. Among recalibration and UW and WBC and all these other things that we're going to discuss tonight ad nauseum, at length, I hope. I think something else we might want to keep on the forefront of our minds is that we've got an activist Supreme Court judiciary, how we pick them, and the decisions that they're making are going to come to you.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
Now, whether or not it's a life issue, I don't know. But it could be one of those others I'm talking about, and a myriad of others, because you can look through our state statutes, and all of it's up for grabs right now. They created definitions out of thin air, where clearly your Wyoming legislature had the right in our Constitution to make those decisions, and they completely ignored it and went off on their own and made their own decisions. So I'm looking at whether or not we're going to do a constitutional amendment. I'm not completely convinced that's the right idea right now. I've got a lot of other folks that are opining on this. They believe that we are really opening ourselves up for a major train wreck and potentially codifying abortion as a healthcare right in Wyoming into our Constitution. Number 2, we're also potentially looking at how we will put, I hate to even talk about this, it's important, and I would love to hear you guys as we get into this conversation deeper. What do you guys think about a heartbeat bill? I've been in very close contact with John Arch. He is the unicameral president of the Nebraska legislature. He said in our state, he said we knew we were gonna lose that argument if we took it to a vote of the people about outlawing abortion. He said, so we came up with a 12-week law, so there's no elective abortions after 12 weeks. Is that where we need to go as a state? Because right now, we can't stop any little baby from being killed. Zero. They're all subject to this. See, you all have heard me. I've talked to you enough, and I'll repeat it again. I believe that our Constitution had it clearly right when our founders said it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I believe governments were instituted among men to protect life. Why else are they there? What does liberty do you if you don't have life first? And right now in Wyoming, we don't have it. They have no voice. We can't even do this from the 14th Amendment. I asked one attorney, I said, what can you do for the baby that can't speak loud enough to be heard for themselves if they're near term? What about the 14th Amendment? No, they won't opine on that. They won't talk about it. Needs an advocate. What happens if we gave them a guardian ad litem? And let them represent them? No, they don't believe that would work. So, I'm up for suggestions, ladies and gentlemen. But we've got a lot of other decisions that we need to make as well with our judiciary and all the further reaching implications that that holds right now. Just in that decision, forget that decision. Put that out of your mind. Forget about the little kids. Think about all of the other things that you and I all hold dear in this state that are subject to strict scrutiny now. And will it be able to be protected? I don't have anything else other than that. As you well know, we've got a major budget session coming up here right now. In the House, we're going to have I believe the recalibration is going to start in the House. The budget bill is going to start in the House. Let's see, the other two. Capital construction and one other one.
The school and the capital construction.
School foundation and the capital construction. Yeah. We broke those all apart. We're also going to be looking at the big beautiful bill in the rural health care. I think, unless I hear otherwise, I think that's going to be in the House too.
But the budget's a mirror.
The budgets will be mirrors. But so we need to discuss a little bit about that and what you guys see as the direction we want to go. As you well know, there has been $1 billion that has been allotted to each state. There's about $205 million that's supposed to come to the state of Wyoming. It is not here yet. I just asked that question the other day. It is not here yet. We're trying to figure out how and what to do with that. We're still a little bit fuzzy on some of the direction from the federal government end of it. It is for the support and the encouragement or the development of rural health care, and specifically EMS. We're trying to figure out how to make it last longer than just 5 years. And depending on how we handle these dollars, there's potentially the same amount again that could potentially come. But that's going to be dependent on how we handle different issues like SNAP benefits, what we require. Are we going to ask for a waiver? Are we going to make sure that our benefits are actually being used for good, healthy food? You know, those are all things that the Baja movement is going to be watching each one of the states to make sure that those dollars are being spent wisely and that they're helping people be healthier. Another part of this bill, as we're looking at, is holding some of that money in aside into what basically is a fund that will generate revenue. $205 million, take 70% of that money, put it into a fund, and keep adding that up. It'll end up to about, what was it, almost just short of $750 million, a little less than $750 million. The other 30% will be distributed each year to hospitals around the state of Wyoming. The other portion of that will be put into a fund that will be put into basically an endowment, and then we will be able to spend off of those dollars each year of the interest accrued or the investment income that comes off that, so we can hopefully sustain an ongoing help to our rural health care, our EMS and other things is what we're looking at right now, not to mention the other dollars that are potentially coming. So we're trying to figure out how to use them wisely and make them last. and stretch it out, because we do have major problems in healthcare in Wyoming. We've got about 2, maybe 3 hospitals right now that are in the black, was the last I heard. Our hospitals are struggling. Actually, our hospitals are floundering. I spent a 4-hour meeting with Mike McCafferty and Sheridan the other day at his Memorial Hospital looking at what's happening, and all I can tell you is it's consolidation. The big guys are swallowing up the small ones. It's just, I don't know how else to put it clearer than that. You're seeing Sheridan now is going to try to make a maneuver to maybe have some autonomy for 10 years, and then they're going to already building an alliance with Billings Logan in an effort to try to provide doctors. Another issue that we're facing right now, and we're trying to figure out how to best manage that, is what they're calling the, if I stop moving, I bet it'd make you feel better, wouldn't it?
I don't care.
Okay. Is the maternity districts they're calling them in Wyoming. In Sheridan, they've got 5 OB doctors. But he said, you gotta remember, Jeff, he said 20% of this hospital is paying for the other 80%. He said 80% of my hospital is not making money. And so then, and then to add to this, he said, now I've got other hospitals in the state that the big money is orthopedic, it's sports injuries, all those different things. That's where the really good money is. He said, so what they're doing, he said, they're moving those guys from other hospitals are coming over to their doctors opening practices in my community. He said, I counted on that revenue to be able to offset the things I was losing my shirt on, like OBs. He said, but I know I have to have them for my community. But he said, now, he said, another group out of Casper just came up and purchased a piece of land not far from the hospital. And he said, they're already getting ready to build another sports medicine clinic there. And he said, they send their doctors up. He said, they see the patients, and then they drop those patients back down to their facilities and do the work. He said, they're basically scalping out the high dollar medical revenue. And he said, stripping it away from my hospital and my ability to be able to offer services to my people in Sheridan. And he's got a really rolling hospital. If you want to go and see something amazing, go look and see what Mike McCafferty's doing in Sheridan. A lot of philanthropy, I will tell you that. Almost everyone in the rooms has got somebody's name on. People that have donated and invested in that hospital. And he works very diligently to do that. He's adding a mental wing right now because mental issues are so big in Wyoming right now and across our nation. He was just working on it. He took me on a tour through that. He's trying to figure out, from his perspective, he said, we waste an ungodly amount of money on mental health. He said, we spend it poorly. And so he's got a plan to put together up there where he can provide those services and be able to get people what he believes is going to be real tangible help and keep them out of the system, out of Title 22, which is going to reduce the cost to all of us as a state. And he's doing it right now. He's about to open his doors. Provide real-time mental help and assistance for folks that are struggling in real time in his hospital. Walk in off the street and they'll help him. And he's going to hopefully do it for far less. He said, the money that we're spending on mental health is unbelievable. He said, we are throwing so much money in so many different places it's not working. He said, I'm trying to figure out how we can do a better job of our resources and try to get people the help that they actually need. So that's working. We're glad to do that and work with that situation there. But those are the issues that we're dealing with. It's trying to figure out what we can do with that money. If you guys think that's a good idea to try to put some of that away and start to be able to relay some of that for EMS down the road as those revenues come in off of that investment, then I think it will make a real long-term tangible difference to our communities, our rural communities, to all of our communities that way. And so with that, I guess, we can talk about a lot of other issues. There's a lot of bills coming. In the House, you can have 5. I wouldn't advise it. In the Senate, you can have 3. You can start. My suggestion to my members, because of the load. It's good music. The admonition I've made to my members in my House is try to keep it down to 1, maybe 2 bills. The first one, I just sent out the message today for my committee chairs to submit their committee bills for a consent list and try to get those up that have already been through the committees and get those moving as quickly as we can through the process. And so we'll see what they submit, and then we'll go into personal bills. But we've got a 20-day session. The This is gonna be over and done in 1 month. And we've got some things that haven't been done in quite a few years that are all gonna be shoehorned into this deal, so hopefully folks can be a little bit patient with us because we got a whole lot going on, a lot. And so with that, I will digress. And Cheri, if you've got something you want to share, otherwise, Cheri, we're at your disposal.
I'll say one more thing about the rural healthcare transformation. So that application was fairly new at our last committee meeting with Labor Health, but I did talk to Representative Hageman about that. She was key in helping get those dollars to our state. And the idea behind it is to make a sustainable system. Right now, our rural hospitals are really struggling, and to make a sustainable system so that it can be self-perpetuating, that we're not seeing the struggles that we are now, to make some system changes in how things work and make everything better so it serves us better, and so that we're not running in deficits all the time, which is what we're doing right now. Also with the maternity deserts, I would address that. And being on the committee, I had the opportunity to question about that. That actually was something that the Harris-Biden administration started. And some of the reasons they're identifying deserts where they haven't been before is because how they've partitioned off the state. So they're not taking into account what is across the state line or in another county that's very close that someone could go to. They're just looking at regions with hard and fast lines. So if you're in southern Wyoming and there's a clinic across the line in Colorado, they're not counting that. So I told them in order for me to take this effort more seriously, their maps would have to be accurate. We can't make decisions off of maps that are inaccurate. So we have to revisit that, and that's just a little more information that the committee received on that. As far as the Supreme Court decision, that's been on a lot of our minds. We've been at a lot of meetings in the evenings, trying to decide what direction to go, how we can support it. My constitutional amendment that I'm having drafted also includes a non-attorney component where there would be 2 non-attorneys appointed by the governor, one from the Speaker of the House, one from the President of the Senate, and then 2 attorneys from the Bar Association, and then 1 more pick from the governor's office that could be an attorney. So that would turn the tables a little. The other thing we need is transparency in the decisions that are being made so that citizens can vote to not retain if there's someone that they disagree with. The other thing we need is transparency in the decisions that are being made so that citizens can vote to not retain if there's someone that they disagree with, the decisions they're making. My voting record is public, and judges' voting records should be public too, so that you know exactly who is filling those slots and if you're pleased or not with them. Regardless of, what you think on this decision, it's just good governance, and I think it's an important step that the state can take. So with that, I think if it's okay with Chairman Drost, we'll open up to questions now. That's why we're here. We want to hear from you. And so there are a myriad of topics, some that we probably haven't even covered that are on your mind. And so we're here to listen. I've got my notebook and pen and had some great meetings with your local electeds today. I see some of the commissioners here tonight, so if they have something else they'd like to add, I missed a few of them, but just happy to hear from you and see what your thoughts are.
Come on up. Yes.
So, I'm here to discuss 2 things, the proposed change to the school funding and the state mandated health insurance. I'd like to start out with the key fact that moving to a state mandated health insurance plan would increase our district's cost by approximately $1.4 million. And again, this is a bill but this is the legislation mandating that school districts go to a state-funded insurance plan. This is not an abstract number. This money that would otherwise be funds for teachers, classrooms, programs, and student services. The clear result of this cost is fewer teachers, larger classroom sizes, and reduced programs. As you guys are well aware, Wyoming has not fully recalibrated school funding since 2010. Mr. Neiman, I know you're up here and you stood on state statutes. You guys are statutorily obligated to do recalibration every 5 years. The state hasn't done it since 2010. In fact, school districts, we have sued the state of Wyoming. And the courts have ruled that, in fact, Wyoming has underfunded schools. Sorry.
If I may remind everyone of the rules, first state your name, where you live, and what you do
Jason
for your
from Newcastle.
Thank you.
Sorry, Cheri, I got it. So I'll have to condense some of this. The recalibration proposal will eliminate 656 core classroom teachers statewide, is the numbers from the state, with only increasing the budget by less than 1%, 0.9% is the numbers that I see. This is not a reform. This is a reduction in instructional capacity at the expense of our teachers. Okay.
No, it's up to you, Cheri, whatever, I want to hear all of it.
So that's the statement, the school recalibration portion. The second half of that is the state insurance. As you know, most school districts use WEP. With WEP, Newcastle participates in that along with the cities and counties. WEP for us is a good model to use because it's more specific to educators. It gives us more control on the cost, flexibility to respond to the changes in the market. Not only that, WEP offers 9 active option plans where the state only offers 4. So again, WEP gives us more choices where the state mandate only offers 4. So basically that's what I have in a nutshell.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. It's good to have this conversation. Okay. I will preface it by saying this. The last word from the recalibration committee was to send it to the districts, to ask them their numbers, and to get those numbers from the district and see if this was even doable to the State Department, because we have to work through, our AMI department there. We've already got state funding for all state employees that are offered the state insurance program. And so that's already there. There's approximately 35,000 people on it. We weren't sure if this was going to be something that they could drop right into, because many times the school districts have different policies and lengths of those policies and when they would actually come due. So that's what we actually left the committee with. The recommendation was to go to the state insurance pool, because we believed that that was an opportunity that we could provide to the people that was consistent. And it's interesting because I've actually had superintendents, 2 of them now since the other day when we were there, that said this is going to be a good thing for our districts. So So not everybody's going to be on that. So this is all that to say this. Right now, currently with the insurance system, the program that we're using, about 70% of the people actually take the insurance. Of that 53%, at least 30% that is not actually being insured, though we as a state are funding that insurance. Because of the way the block grant works, we send the money for the salary, the insurance, and the retirement for each teacher that is in the block funding model, the block grant model. 30% of those people do not even utilize the insurance, which is boiled down to $53 million. It was actually being spent on insurance. It was being allocated for insurance for employees of the state school districts, but it was not being utilized. It was going into the districts, being routed to other things that they wanted to see fit. What we believe and what we're looking at right now is providing this is that this is an opportunity for folks to be able to have a level playing field, which I've heard from multiple superintendents. They said, now finally I can actually offer the same things and I can actually honestly compete with other districts. He said, because we're all on the same level playing field. I had a gentleman from Uinta County got hold of me today. I just got the email. In fact, I will leave the name out, but I'll show you the email. He said he just compared their policy to Aetna, to the state policy. He said, I will advocate for the state policy. He said, it is better than what we have. He said, we didn't even realize it. He said, but now, and he was a math teacher, and he said, I'm advocating for it. He said, I think it's the right thing to do, at least for our district. And so that's what we're looking at right now. We're waiting to get the information back. We hopefully will have the information back before session. I don't know that the insurance is going to stay in there. I don't. That's why I'm coming to meetings like this. But I will tell you this, I've got a lot of districts and a lot of superintendents out there and a lot of teachers that are very interested in it. And they would like to do it. The other part of this, and I mean, I'm sure not everybody in here is going to be thrilled with this idea, but I have to figure out what's happening with the other $53 million that was not being spent on insurance. Other people had insurance with their spouse, or some folks elected not to take it for whatever reason, but we still spend it. Where did it go? The other part of this that's going to be, I think, a point of contention, we're going to see, and to your point on the recalibration thing, my understanding was we haven't done a recalibration in Wyoming since 2005. We've never had, and we're supposed to do it, you're right, every 5 years we're supposed to do a recalibration. The first year I got elected, I saw a recalibration. It ended in a deadlock with people calling each other socialists. If you want to go back and play the video, watch Charlie Scott and Albert Summers and Steve Harshman and all those folks. She was on it. She can tell you. So right, wrong, or indifferent, I tried to put together a recalibration group that could actually get along, work together, and do a bipartisan work, and we did. Now, whether or not everybody agrees with where we're headed, it's not done yet. But I am pretty impressed that we were able to have a recalibration in the last 20 years that left the recalibration committee with a unanimous vote, bipartisan. That's unheard of. And don't think the Democrats are the ones that are going to not want to make sure the teachers are taken care of. Chris Rothfuss is one of the biggest advocates for our teachers. I've served with Chris multiple years now. Mike Yin was the one I got on there. I know Mike. I asked Mike specifically to be on my side of that committee because I knew he would bring that expertise, that position to the committee so that we were well-rounded. When we put the committee together, I put my education chairman on, I put my appropriations chairman on there. I put Tom Kelly, he ran for superintendent of public instruction. He's a professor. Put people on there that I thought would actually have some working knowledge of what will and won't work. And we came out of that discussion with a unanimous vote to move it to the House. Now we're going to take it and we're going to cut the P out of it. Because there's going to be 62 legislators in my House that if we can even get it past introduction, it has to pass a 2/3 introduction. I've got to get 42 members to vote for that thing, or it dies right there. full disclosure, if it dies in the House, I've got another deal worked out with the Senate to bring it from the Senate side. They only need 21. Or we're gonna send it through the House. And hopefully we will get introduced and then we can start to work the bill. And so, I appreciate what you're telling me. I look at this from the standpoint of what we spend, according to the numbers that I see right now, this coming session, this coming year, we will spend, if this is passed, $1.85 billion on education at K-12. You can write that figure down, check me on that. Whoever's writing that stuff down, 1.85 billion. That's the most we've ever spent on education in Wyoming in our state's history. It's come out of the conservatives. We added another $5 million to mental health right there the other day. I hope that makes it through in order to support a program that is going to end that was federally funded because it's working. I mean, the idea, I don't know, guys, the idea that we're trying to hurt teachers and to hurt education, the numbers don't back it up. We're teaching around 85,000 students in the state of Wyoming right now. Do the math. That's the most we've ever spent on average in our history, is what is being proposed right now. We were $11 million over statute. And when it left the committee the other day, we had added back in some things that had been out that we had good discussion with, and we listened and we tried to make sure that we were responsive. I sat down and had a meeting with Clark down here and other small districts. We had all those meetings. We put in the small districts back in there. We left them whole. We added money for mental health. We changed the classroom size. I know the classroom sizes is a big deal, but here's the thing. We modified that in an effort to try to make it a slow roll in that. We brought it down from 25 to 22, from 4 to 8 grades. Current state averages in our school classrooms right now, ladies and gentlemen, is 20 students. That's the state average right now, it's 20 students. Elementary is 19, up there is 20.6, the average is 20. We're funding for 22. In elementary, we're funding for 16 to one teacher.
Gordo and Gray all the way. I think it would be an epic. It's what Chuck's been picking the fight with him forever. Mark has responded a couple of times this year and gotten hot under the collar. Says he wasn't hot under the collar. I can believe it this last time that he maybe thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and ask him to step outside because it's what a Wyoming guy would do. I actually think it was a good play by him. I think he follows it up right now and says, hey, you know what? I think me and Chuck Gray ought to settle this like men. And so I'm going to run for the U.S. House seat.
Let's settle it on the ballot instead of the ring.
Yeah, and God bless Jenny Gordon. And I know that's a burden on families and everything if he does win. Chuck Gray is full speed ahead on it, but I want to see it, man. I want to see Gray Gordon. And I think, we'll close on that, Alexis. Let's see it. Give the people the grudge match that they've been waiting for. Give the Wyoming voters the race that they deserve.
We're funding for 22. In elementary, we're funding for 16 to one teacher. Fact check me. I don't care. Get after it. Get to the Wyoming Department of Education website and look it over. Those are what's what we're being shared with us. And that's how the funding goes. Now, as far as the siloing the money, did you ask about siloing the money? Maybe if you didn't. Okay, well, I'll wait for the next person because I'm sure that's going to come up. But that's where we're at right now. We're waiting to see how this looks on the actual numbers of what the districts are at, what's going on, and getting feedback from the districts, and then we will be able to make our determination because that's where it was left with the bill. Yes, sir.
And I don't disagree with you, but again, as a representative for our area, that's the number I gave you is what we as a district are showing that $1.4 million is going to be a cost to our district. Now, you're right, some other districts, it may work for them, but I'm telling you, for our district, that is not going to work. And if you throw around the term mandate, that's a pretty strong word.
Well,
I don't know if they should do something different, but you tell me we're gonna mandate schools.
We cannot hear.
he's saying it's a mandate, that a mandate is being pushed out on. And it's like, you know, when you do say have a mandate, yes. We mandate for state employees that they get this policy. If you go to work for the state of Wyoming, this is your policy, if you want it. You know, honestly, folks, I gotta tell you, I had a real heartburn with some of this, when talking about this, because I don't like the mandate, I don't. But then I was talking to some other legislators, and they said, Chip, stop and think about this. He said, they're state employees. He said, they're not independent. He said, they're state employees. He said, we require that our other state employees have the state program. He said, why should there be any difference? He said, they're funded by the state taxpayers. He said, they're lined out by the state. He said, explain to me why they should be different than the other state employees, all the way from DOT to Road and Bridge to everybody. And so that's the argument, that's the discussion we're gonna have on the floor, because that's what's gonna be coming from others. You know, and there's another part of this that, you know, the grant part. When you talk about granting dollars, how many of you in here, this is what I'm learning, how many of you in here have received grant dollars that had no sideboards? No, I'm just gonna give you the money and you spend it however you wish with no sideboards. What were those grants?
Go back to school.
What's that?
Go to school.
Go to school?
Yep. Finish my degree.
And they give you a grant with no sideboards on it?
Exactly. All I had to do is.
That was a Pell Grant?
All I had to do was show my education plan and my grades.
So you had to show them an education plan and your grades. So you have had to, did you have to have any kind of level of confidence with those grades or anything?
Just had to pass the classes.
Yeah. So there's
What
sideboards.
I said I was doing with it.
Right.
Why I took the money, so that was my plan, that was gonna happen no matter what.
Okay. Marty?
And hopefully I can project, real tired. But mine was from the Wyoming Business Council during COVID. I got $5,000 to pay bills. There were strings attached.
If you want to, okay, we can go into that, because I've learned a bunch on the Wyoming Business Council and the amount of fraud that we didn't even investigate with the money from COVID.
I have no problem, but I think I had a Wyoming Business Council question too. But I'll take it.
Yep, glad to. But that's where that's at. And I appreciate your questions. I appreciate you being here, because this is good. I like this discussion, and this is what we need to be having. But that's the idea, that's what we're looking at, and I do believe, honestly, that we will get a recalibration done this time, and it's the first time in 2 decades. And I'm glad to see that we're hopefully gonna get it done, I trust. We'll see if we can get it through.
Good evening, my name's Fred, and I live here in Newcastle. Really more of a statement of concern, but phrase it as a question, if that's okay. I've been getting targeted by ads and various things, and also seeing Wyoming coming up in national media about growth, and you know, the AI data centers are a great example. I want to see Wyoming stay Wyoming, and I'm less concerned about growth, and I'm worried about the legislature seeing that tax money as a big lure. I'd rather see things stay agriculture, mineral extraction. You know, I think the plant going in Upton for rare earths is a great idea, but is there much going on with legislature to keep Wyoming focused on Wyoming values as far as business development and growth goes, versus things that are more coastal like AI?
That's a great question, and that's what the bill I'm running with regard to energy policy is related to, because most of those businesses are requiring a lot of energy or water, like the hydrogen and the Sidewinder and Pronghorn projects. Those are slated for Commerce and Niobrara counties, and they want to be a continuous loop of windmills and utilize electrolysis to split water molecules into hydrogen. So I think the legislature needs to be involved in those decisions. One of the problems we currently have is the Wyoming Energy Authority, which is largely funded by the governor's energy matching funds, which he just currently gave $100 million to BWXT for a nuclear project, which is still in R&D, research and development. It's not even an actual project yet. How do we best spend those dollars? And we're talking about hundreds of millions, and how is the public being involved in that process when it's going from the governor's energy matching funds in the budget straight to the Energy Authority? Yes, if you're watching the Energy Authority, you may find out about the public meeting, but by the time it's that far down the pike, it's pretty hard to stop a project like that, as you can see from some of the projects across the state. And so I think the legislature needs to be involved in those decisions so that there's public participation, just like our water development accounts and our wildlife natural trust fund dollars. Those are all projects that are approved by a select committee. Then they run through the legislative process. So if there's any problems, if citizens have problems or are affected. So I think all of those things need to come back into the public process so that we have a due process provision for all the citizens that will be affected across the state. So that's my answer, and my one small, chink at the system to try to get that public involvement back engaged, because most of the things you're talking about require large amounts of electricity or generate electricity and have huge land use issues associated with them. And we need to be thinking about our wildlife. We need to be thinking about agricultural production. Once these solar and wind installations and these commercial generation projects come into our areas, they're not going away. It's a permanent change from our private use to an industrial use, and the legislature should have a say in that, and so should the public.
And just to follow up on that, I appreciate your position, I truly do, but there are so many people coming to the state because they're after what you love and what you're enjoying right now. They like the freedom, they like the remoteness, they like all these different things that Wyoming enjoys. But we've also been dealing with some major issues from the federal end of it, oversight and restrictions and ability to be able to produce what we do the best, and Wyoming creates and produces energy. I met with Doug Bergram back in DC, went back to a meeting, and one of the issues that I brought up to him was he's telling all of us, all this whole bunch of legislators, speakers, and presidents, he says, we want to come to ribbon cuttings, we want to come to groundbreakings, we want to come to ribbon cuttings. And I'm like, well, here's the problem, sir. We've got major issues with people being concerned about investment in fossil fuels, in oil, gas, coal, all those different things, because they don't want to get a Keystone Pipeline. Where we get started, we have an administration change, and then all this investment is on the ground, and then somebody comes in and changes the administration and says, you're not doing that. That stops people. I've got a guy up in my part of the country that would love to do some more work on timber. Maybe look at more sawmills. They're trying to release more ground, and they have been. The Trump administration's opened up more ground for us to be able to log and to manage. He's concerned that if I get started and put a bunch of money into it, he said, they'll just shut me off, kill my leases, and just say, you're not coming. So that's the big issue that we face in Wyoming. Wyoming is ready, and we can produce energy. We can. I don't particularly care for chasing the solar and the wind. I mean, you can look at the bad data. Wind does not cost float. Right when that thing's starting to generate revenue, they're wore out. And then they'll sell them to somebody else for a stipend, and then we'll pay again. And we're doing that with coal and oil and gas. We're supplementing the industries that are working diligently to do away with us. And what's amazing to me is those data centers are coming for what we have, and we can produce it, is low cost, consistent, reliable energy. And the idea that Wyoming is not open for business, bull butter. I've talked to a lot of people, they said, that's what we want from you guys. You have what nobody else can produce. Consistent, reliable energy, low cost. Our race with the Chinese on AI, Wyoming is going to be one of the key drivers in that because Microsoft's in here. What are they going to build? 6 more? And OpenAI and everything. We're in a full-on sprint against China right now. And Wyoming has what they need, energy. And we do a really good job of producing it. And that's the thing. I mean, as long as we can fight the federal end of it, stop the restrictions, stop the limitations, let us operate, let us do our thing out here and generate the revenue and keep our people working, then we can do it. But the big problem we have, and the people that talk to me, they talk about, well, what happens when Trump's gone? What happens when this administration changes? And then we got somebody that potentially could come in and say, I just don't like that. I'd rather burn hydrogen. I'd rather convert water, believe it or not, water into jet fuel. And we're going to get it out of Wyoming. Not only that, we're going to get it out of eastern Wyoming, where there's not a lot of it. And we're going to pump it down to DIA so that, and granted, I mean, I'm sure there's folks in here that are all revved up about the idea that, you can sell hydrogen to people that want to be green. But is it smart? Is it right? I mean, we're going to suck water out of the ground, turn it into jet fuel. You can use, coal or natural gas too. Now, there is quite a bit of talk about opening another coal-fired power plant over here in the Powder River Basin. And Berger was talking about that, and that they are helping with those monies to try to make sure that that gets going. He said, we want to get these things underway if we can. So I think the future for energy in Wyoming couldn't be brighter. It really couldn't be. But there's some things that come with that, sir, that you well know, that you have to have people. If you want these things to work, you have to have human beings. And if you don't have enough belly buttons, you can't produce it. So there's the catch-22. I can show it to you up in my part of the country. People are moving in there. That's what's pushed the price of our property taxes to the road 76% the last 5 years, increase in property taxes, because people are bringing money from everywhere else, and they're wondering why we're giving away land. And it's like, it's not being given away. It's stopping us from being able to expand agriculture. I mean, it's just turned that part of northeast Wyoming into transitional land. It's no longer ag. I'm sure if Justin's got kids down here and he's going to try to turn that over to his kids, he's going to start planning right now. Joni and I are planning right now to turn our ranch to our kids if we can make it work. But there's no young agriculturalist that's going to come in and pay over $3,000 an acre for ag land when it takes 20 to 25 acres of it to run a cow in our country. Even with cow prices where they're at right now, you can't pencil that. So we're going to see more and more people leaving these ag lands if we don't figure out something to do to keep kids in ag. So.
I have one more comment about recalibration. I'm glad I'm not on it this time. Last time was terrible.